Hello, everyone, and welcome to the broadcast. I'm newtmechanist, and tonight we are going to be continuing our game dev project. Last time we finished up converting all of the existing systems and objects over to a text system. That is, the existence of a bullet or something like that is defined by the contents of text files that we have in our data folder. This should make dropping things in relatively easy, as well as locating where we would want to change existing objects. We don't have to go scrolling through and hunting, where we set one of the creatures or bullets up. Today, we're going to start work on the process for spawning the player. And part of that will feed into like character selection, that sort of thing. So, classic methodology with this kind of game is you start the game, you select a character, maybe you select a stage, and you drop in. And that character selection can determine what you start with. So we're going to be setting up what that starting stuff is. Now, this doesn't necessarily refer to things like behaviors or health. This is just how to load up the weaponry. We could look into constructing the player entity from scratch using the data that we have in that file. That is, that it does not exist as a entity in the catalog so much as a pre-created package. And maybe that's the road we'll go down. But we're going to be speculating on that a bit. Let's see. We have 4 kitties on camera. Hey there, Okaneki. Welcome, welcome. We're doing well. Might take Sky in for another vet appointment. His eye infection wrapped up pretty well, but I think there's still some lingering effects. Doesn't seem urgent. He's still perky, still eating all of the regular stuff, but his eyes are still noticeably runny. So, might do to have a follow-up checkup. Doing okay despite that, is what his condition seems to be. Okay, so again, all of this stuff is now defined by data files in the content here. Frames per second can still be relatively high. Might have some lingering stuff running on the PC that's bogging it a bit. I'll probably have to check that. Because we are running a bit lower than normal. We're getting 75 to 100 frames per second right now, which isn't what we would normally get. Let's amp everything up here. I want to make sure if it's oscillating over 60, then that's just where we want to be, even if it's lower than normal. Often we can get over 100 when we start off. So again, there might be something that's still bogging the system down. All of the file loading that we mentioned earlier happens at launch and never again. Yeah, there's definitely something bogging it down. Let me do a quick check. Sure, I don't have any lingering processes. more or less okay. Interesting. Let's give it another run here. About the same. Just going to do a little bit of verification, make sure that things are still working. We're starting it from the Godot side, seeing if there's any change here. Doesn't look like it. Might just need a reboot, you know? We shall continue, though. So this is what we're currently doing for debug purposes. We're just jamming it in there. So we load everything up. We do build entity templates. Build entity templates happens every time the inventory changes. This is what converts a bullet object into something that can handle its gates and the like. So, here, we'll demonstrate. So, of course, if I were to do this, it's going to, there's a difference. So, I added a zigzag movement pattern. The bullets are now behaving accordingly. I add this, same thing. Just add a bunch more so that it won't, end the game. So this is all normal behavior, but if I put a gate in here, this is where the special logic needs to happen. Is with a gate, we have to set it up so all of this is happening by default. All of this will always happen, the backside of it. But it's only after 3 seconds that this part comes into play. There is special logic that segregates this part as universal behavior. No matter what, this is always going to happen, even if there's other behavior playing. After 3 seconds, this behavior now is happening after this first behavior. If we put in another one, let's spiral in. Okay, so again, the first set of behavior before the first mouse happens all the time. After 3 seconds, the next behavior chunk, it will start to zigzag. A following 3 seconds, so at the 6th second of the thing being alive, the zigzag stops happening because the next gate opens, the prior gate's content goes away, and now the second gate's content becomes active. The build templates is what drives all of this. So again, we'll see zigzags for a bit. Well, we'll see them go straight, and then they'll start to zigzag, and then at the outer edge, they'll start to orbit. The spin. We can see it more emphatically if we do... if we start with the zigzag, we go into spiral in, and then we end in spiral out. So again, it starts zigzagging, and it will always zigzag. It's a little harder to see with the spin happening, but the spin is still going back and forth, back and forth. And then at the 6th second, they start to spiral out, which sends them off the screen very quickly. But the zigzag is always happening during that. even more. Spiral out is a very obvious pattern. The spiral in that happens during a spiral out creates interesting results because both of them rotate the projectile. All motion like this, we're trying to make it so that the projectiles are not sent in a particular direction unless it is let's call it an accelerating motion. So moving in a straight line is an accelerating motion. They have a velocity to them. But moving in a spiral isn't really accelerating motion. We're pivoting the projectile. What that means is that when we incorporate other things that pivot the projectile, the zigzag, the spiral in, that kind of stuff, those will distort each other. Because things like spiral out, in order to accomplish it, they have a rotation over time that they're doing. Like, it expects a particular thing. If it's distorted, then that will alter how it looks over time. Let's switch this with a wave pattern. We've got a lot of placeholders going on here. So now instead of the spiral in, we have a wave, which is a left-right kind of curving motion. It will lean out, and then it will lean back in, lean out, lean back in, so you get that smooth wave pattern. Well, if you watch, every now and then the projectiles will like spin in place as the pivoting overlaps and has them turn hard in place. I like to show how this works now and again. And if we add random motion into it at that point, instead, we get stuff like this. So by default, all of them are being pushed in a random direction already. The spiral moves out in different directions. But after 3 seconds, we add another random direction to it. That might push against it. It might push with the initial direction. So we're getting this very loopy pattern, let's call it. Kitty chin scratches here. So again, this is some of the core system. Really want to see here. Got 3 to the 5th going on. Something is interfering with the performance here. I think we're still more or less in good enough territory, though. Again, system probably just needs a reboot. I don't do that enough. Try one more thing, actually. Close that. We go down into the code. Open the catalog again. Okay, so we've launched the Visual Studio editor from within Godot. Will this make a difference? I don't actually know if it'll do anything. One of these is actually zigzag. We're getting less performance than I would expect. Oh well. Switch cameras. Alright. So again, if we go into the inventory. So base inventory handling. This isn't supposed to be handled here. So we have two things that we can do. We can set up a special kind of entity load that is constructing the entity outside of the catalog, or we can have this stuff be a separate loadout. That this stuff is loaded into the catalog as an entity of its own, as a thing of its own, and handled at launch. So the general thought is either we combine the player in their loadout as one thing, or we make the loadout a separate thing and the player a separate thing. Currently, the player is its own entity. Let's load it up here. Repos. So we go into our data folder, we go into our entities, and we have the player. Player is defined like any of the other ones. It says this is what the player is. They use this texture key. They are this type of thing. And this is how they move. We could make them differently. So one thought would be hard swapping the texture and having a base-like kind of blank entity that we can use, then having the behaviors and similar of the player swapped in when they're initialized. So we put the player in the field with nothing, and then we sort of stuff it with values. This is how it moves. This is how, this is its starting inventory. This is how it looks. All of that stuff could be generated on the fly. Not sure. I kind of like the idea of players being kept entirely separate from base entities. They still have the same general logic, but of coming into existence. So the player in the field is the same as any entity. It moves around, it gets collided with. Each time slice it handles messages. But the player has a lot of extra systems and patterns to it that would be good to bundle into a single object instead of spreading them out. So individual characters might have things like different allotments of health, different default speeds as far as their movement, or just different sets of movement or ways of moving, as well as their different loadouts. So within an object like this, we could make an extension of entity that is player entity that still has like base behavior. That's how its movement would happen. But additionally would have things like what is its base loadout. So, hello. Cat try to walk a pathway that it knows it can't walk through, but it wants to because it wants to go the shorter way, even though it can't fit cleanly through the shorter way. Now I have a cat behind my head. Okay, yeah, let's extend the player object, because then I can define player objects in one file. So we have entity to make a new one under entity. It's very weird. Something's definitely off, you know. Just the chair a bit. Let's get rid of that. There we go. Just the chair further. Extends entity. As it extends entity, we need to add the catalogable constructor, which is ultimately these two. That. Hello. Hello. Actually laying on my shoulder. Yeah, well, you stopped petting me when I was laying behind your head. All of that. Same way we call base. So we take copy. All of this will be definitely impeding typing. Yeah, but I'm comfy. We do that in behavior. Okay, it uses the parent class. My mistake. Entity. There. You done there? All right, more delay by cat. Hello. Let's put something on the screen for folks here while we wait. And spiral, move in a random direction and spiral. It is PSS, it is. Same game. We've come a bit of a ways on it though. Putting crazy projectile action on screen while I give a cat much attention on my lap here. About oh, they kind of form in a big clot with this pattern. Yep, lots of iterations, lots of testing. Trying to ramp up the pace at which I work on it so that we can get more progress for each stream. Yeah, delay by cat though, so. We'll just put loopy yarn balls on the screen in the interim. If it were a spiral in instead. All right, we get a little bit of distortion on their loop. we're getting some of them kind of go into an ellipse as they go along. We still have to get burst in place, where instead of all firing at once, that it fires rapidly for one period and then a pause. So, you know, kind of a 1, 2, 3 hold sort of thing. Very needy, you know that? I haven't watched the show. No, I'm not. I haven't been keeping up on Netflix shows. Is it any good? The first one was pretty solid. I liked the music. Had a good theme music, you know? Musical score is one of those that I think often gets overlooked, but it does so much for setting the tone. Okay. Okay, so we're extending entity. Are going to load a series of weapons and then a series of behaviors. Effectively, we're loading a series of items. I think items are another one that we're going to have to add some subtyping to so that the inventory knows what type to deal with. Like, this is a weapon, treat it as a weapon kind of thing. Let's look at our item code and see if there's something we can do with that. It just has its object key. Having a typing here would be good. So we could split them on that and have, like, they have an icon and a tooltip. But it's the sub item that has an object key to tell you what to load. So a weapon would have an entity key, a behavior would have a behavior key. Yeah, let's start there. Partial. Rid of that. We'll copy these in just for expediency again. Odd. There we go. And we'll call base with properties. So to copy. Let's do. We'll call it weapon. That's. Yeah. We'll stick with that terminology. Nah. Okay, so if it's an entity, we will have public string entity key. Property name. Entity key. Doesn't equal null. That. Hey there, Lunar. Not yet, Lunar, but the idea of a power-up that does something akin to like the giant mushroom from Mario, or there was a Bullet Heaven that I played that had kind of a gigantification mode. It was one of the odd kind of indie, for the lack of a better term, ones, the sort of trying to jump on sorts. Yeah, there's one that has like historical figures, like, Tesla and some others, with some sort of like time travel Smash Brothers alternate reality thing going on. That one had one as well. We get entity key into that, and if we go into inventory item and we remove object key, we're going to have to fix a bunch of stuff as a result of what we're doing, but that's okay. weapon. We are going to take all of this. We're going to make a new class. Take all of this. And we're going to make a new class. Behavior-based inventory item. We'll call all of the unneeded usings out of it. Public partial class, so we can inherit from inventory item. So this will have a behavior key. Into that. So okay, so this should have broken a couple of things. So in our catalog, load files, we're going to load items. So our items now need a type. Items. Let's see, this auto behavior. I'm gonna think on that a little bit because no, it ultimately doesn't care. We'll have to come up with something for an icon for the blank item. I might just have to use like a texture for blank item, but there's footwork going on here. Really like that. Because now we don't have a good differentiation. Let's look at our okay. The cell only cares that it's an inventory item. It doesn't care about the contents otherwise. So just having an actual inventory item there is fine. Okay, so this is special handling. We don't want that. So we could look at its type here and say, is it a weapon or is it a behavior? This is how we know to skip it. Hello. Scratches. It's constructing it. So this is how we're adding behaviors here. And we're adding a bullet here. But if we remove that differentiation, angry kitty. Bit of hissing going on there. So again, this is going through and saying, is there an empty item? If there's an empty item, treat it differently. I want to avoid this use case. I'm okay with the idea of inventory items having a type of empty. I don't want to specify that it's a specifically something that has a key of empty. So let's add that to inventory item. Doesn't have an object key anymore. So we're going to check the type here. And then we need okay, so by default, it's a pattern that I kind of like. Pair them with their property key. Okay, so this gives us a way to differentiate based on type, how we want to load them, how we want to create them. Then in our catalog, when we're loading items, standard catalog, not just catalog. parse item file. So what we'll want to do is now we're going to get the item's type here from it. And then based on that type, we will parse out which object to create. If it's empty, we can just use inventory item. So type. If it is empty, hey there, Sentai. Welcome. Are moving along. So it's null. So my favorite Godzilla movie. Ooh. That's tough. -1 is excellent. And Shin Godzilla. So I think -1 is better. So I'd probably say -1, but Shin Godzilla has a lot going for it. I'm not a fan of the original stuff. It's just too silly for me, you know? If do a thing. If do a thing. Behavior entity. Yep. I liked one of the things that I did not know that I saw in one of those little effectively did you know YouTube shorts. But the assumption for a lot of folks was that Godzilla came from the idea or was kind of built around the idea of the Hiroshima bomb. The bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, those nuclear weapons. But it was actually based on nuclear testing that happened in the Pacific after the war. And that nuclear testing, the aftermath of the blast, critically radiation poisoned the crew of a fishing boat and kind of reignited some of the outrage surrounding the prior bombings, the death by radiation sickness of the crew of that boat. which I thought was neat. Because that is often how they have the Godzilla stuff start, is the fishing boat locates it. Or identifies that there's something weird going on, you know? Okay, so now inventory items need types. All of them need types. I can't remember if it was confirmed to be true or if it was just one of those fan theory things. But one of the stories is that SpongeBob SquarePants, the Bikini Bottom location of it, is supposedly derived from those nuclear tests as well. The naming of it. Interesting. It can be hard to tell which, internet factoids are real versus made up. There's a lot of somebody on TikTok said that they heard that somebody on TikTok said that they heard that somebody on TikTok said stuff going on, And that's setting aside the pervasive across content platforms, theory channels. But I will be right back. Quick break. Settling back in just a moment. Is it better now? Normally I get to see the red dots when it goes wrong. Yeah, I have, my sound system is complicated. Okay, so now we have those types. We need to go into the inventory now. It should be broken. Yes, okay. Right here. Here. That might be the YouTube side. Let me check here. How about Twitch side? Everything seems stable. Not a Vtuber stream unless it's scuffed all to hell. Let's see here. Yeah, it's still kind of scratchy. About now. Okay. Suppose I should check that first. It's one of the things that I can pipe back into my earphones. It happens now and again. I appreciate you pointing it out. It's not even just on the streaming side. It's just the local computer does that now and again. I don't know if it's the microphone or the 2 to 3 layers of hoops that I make the sound jump through. Something fails. Okay, so we're going to go through each inventory row. We get the first one. This is... That's the item key. Process the behaviors for group in use. We set the first group in use and then we iterate. I wasn't aware that the entirety of the economy crashed, but, it's been a nonsense has been a possibility for about 21 days. Nice, Sammy. Okay, so this is where we're parsing the behaviors. This is where it needs to be an entity. This is item inventory item type dot entity. Okay, so in theory, if we got this far, this will create an item. This isn't the best assumption to make, but we're going for it. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, the deep something. Apparently not only also like open source, I think it was. So that has effectively kneecapped some of the tech bro hype cycle for AI, and thus the venture capitalism associated with. Entity E all the way down here. So now we're iterating over them. We already have the base behaviors of the entity. That's why we're prefabricating it. So we get the behavior key, and if it's an actual behavior, well, that's not shocking. I mean, not shocking from two directions. That it is a product out of China, where that kind of censorship is not uncommon. Things like Tiananmen Square are, let's just say, censored most of the time. But additionally, that large language models are derived from the data you can give them, and a lot of the data is brute force scraped off the internet. And over there, that information is suppressed. Suppressed, that's the word I was looking for. So it's less likely to have been caught up in those data sweeps. It will have been. And that's where hard-coded blockers come in. Something that most of those large language models have. There's a lot of aspects of we pretend that they're really, really capable, but there's often a lot of hard-coded trickery to get around some of the glaring weaknesses of the system. For a while there was the gag of asking a chatbot, a large language model driven chatbot, how many R's are in the word strawberry, and it would always get it wrong or not be able to answer at all. Because it doesn't know how that's spelled. It doesn't know anything, but the concept of how many R's are in the word strawberry generally don't show up in the data sets. And spelling isn't a thing that it does. So to combat that sort of thing, a lot of times you'll have hard-coded routines inside them that make it so that the large language model recognizes that you're asking how to spell something. Yeah, you dodge the word matching. Hello. Kitten on the lap. Okay, so if it's a behavior, we're going to make it an entity item behavior. Get it from the catalog. That. Inventory item behavior, and we're going to get the behavior key out of it. It's that. And then we're going to run it, and everything's going to work. Raw inventory item, we don't match that. All right, well, that's broken. All right, let's see here. It's got to be in base inventory still. Let's go through this part of the process here. Okay, we have yarn ball. Oh, okay, this is why it's not working. Item key is not what we want here. We need to check that the inventory item that we just pulled is the right type. Okay, so we check inventory item here. And if inventory item... actually, kind of has to be that. Okay, so we're going to get that item and say it had better be a entity item. If it's not an entity item, we have a problem here. Similarly, right here, do this, that. typing around a cat at the moment. Yes, I know. Stinking. Still not working. Again, for each row, we're going through and building it. If this process does not work, then things break down. All right. So we've got its item yarn ball. We're going to get an inventory item entity out of it. So now we have an inventory item entity. Entity is populated. So now we're going to set up all its bits. We get its base behavior group here. We're going to we're going to process what it has. And we're going to look at group in use real quick. It's an ungated selection where it has lifespan, collision, okay. Has its own health pool. It hits things. It takes damage when it hits things, and it moves in a straight line. Sammy, the lap is occupied. I know this is upsetting. Okay, group in use exists. Skip that part. Go into that column, and it should have nothing there. Oh, no, we have an exception. Yep. Okay. So there's our problem. And I know what it is, because this is not necessarily a thing. So first we need the inventory item. Okay, so we get that item. And inventory item dot type equal to inventory item type dot behavior. Okay, so first we get it and see, does it exist? I appreciate the gift sub there, Sentai. Thank you very much. And congratulations, Lunar, on a free sub. Okay. So the inventory item is not null. And its type is behavior. Then behavior of inventory item. Because we got this far, then we know that this should be an inventory item behavior. If this isn't the case, our catalog broke down and we have other problems. So we should do the same thing up here. We're going to define that all the way up here. Item.type inventory item type dot entity is equivalent to that. Okay, this is a better check. We get the base class from it. We make sure it's not null and that the type is what it should be. If that's the case, then we should be able to cast it. But it's still broken. Let's see where it breaks this time. Is null. Which programming language do you prefer, Deborah? Or languages? Grumpy cats today. Okay, in this case, its type is not coming through as entity here. In fact, it's coming out as null. So let's double check. Ah. It would help if we set it. Properties. Property type. Software development's a pretty wide field, you know? A lot of different areas, lots of different things that you get into, you know? Having to make sure I change the kitty bowls more often. We're getting some cat chin acne. Happily just blackheads for now because oof. Cat pimples and whiteheads are horrifying. Once more. All right. There we go. Still a bit choppy. Because we should be able to get close to 120 frames on startup. The goal is not 120 frames during gameplay. The goal is at least 60. That way, we ensure the smoothest possible experience when things start to get out of control. It's right now slightly blocked by my ear and the edge of the screen a little bit. But we've got about 2,400 things in existence right now. And each of those things, every frame that it moves is doing two calculations, collision detection, and if it collides, then an extra series of calculations. Again, on their own, and if there were only, let's say, 20 things, all of the built-in Godot stuff would be just fine for this. Out of the box, you know, character bodies and collision zones, that kind of thing. But we need to account for the fact that there might be upwards of 700 enemies in existence at any given time. That is a ballpark as far as if I have enough space around the screen such that the player will never see the dead zone of entities where they don't spawn. And if they fill the screen, then it was about 700 things could exist at once. Then, because it's about like 20 some of them across the screen and like probably more of that, 22 or so, and then it's something like 10 or more of them down the screen, so like 200 some on the screen, and then you add like half a screen around the visible area, so another 100. So you're looking at, let's just give it a clean 1,000. That's just 1,000 things on screen, and that's not counting player bullets, which if we get a low ball estimate, then you're looking at something like currently 6 things firing at least once a second. So another 6 things a second, and each one of those can live for 10 seconds, or until they hit enough stuff to go away. But that can add up very quickly. In this example, we're creating 781, 243 yarn balls every second. They stack up quite a bit because of the way that they're fanning out. No, I should make a debugging one that is intrinsically bonkers. But we can definitely control it very well by doing things like spreading out the splits. Starts at 3, after 3 seconds it splits into 9, and after 3 seconds it splits into 9 more. And the whole time they'll be spinning. So 3, and then 9. So changing to this pattern also greatly restricts the number of things that can be on the screen at any given moment. And then just because. Sometimes I just like to mess with this. It can be fun. If you haven't watched this before, this is largely inspired by a combination of Vampire Survivors and a game called Noida. You also see the Noida stuff in games like Magicraft. I think there's like Mages of Mystaria or something like that, where your weaponry is a composite of essentially a logic flow. So in this case, from left to right, we go through this, and every frame, we process each of these with the first set that is adjacent to the weapon always happening. These never change. The weapon itself has a default movement that never changes, and then anything adjacent to it before a gate happens, we have a placeholder for a gate right here. This gate says you have to wait 3 seconds. Once that happens, these behaviors will start taking effect every frame. After another 3 seconds, this one opens. These go away. This block of 3 goes away because the next gate opened, and now these take effect. So if we add movements in here, we'll start with a wave, and then we'll do, well, one of them's a zigzag. I don't have the tooltips right. So they start by spiraling out, and after 3 seconds, they'll start to go in a wave pattern, and after 3 more seconds, they'll do a zigzag pattern. Might be zigzag and then wave. But you can see the wild changes in motion that are going on here. Power-ups and whatnot would not just be motion like this. They would always be paired with something else that will have a tangible impact on gameplay. Whether that's, it can hit an enemy and pass through them as well. It can hit an enemy and it will bounce, or those kind of things. You can see if you do get hit, you get knocked back a little bit, and the placeholder hearts start to go away. The heart system is being scheduled for a little down the line. I want to use hearts instead of an arbitrary health bar with a number, you know. I don't want there to be 100 hit points and you take 15 damage or something like that. I want it to be, if you take a hit, you lose a heart. There might be enemies out there that can do more than 1 heart of damage, but the default is you have hearts, taking hits removes a heart. Then that opens the door to us having different types of hearts. It's temporary, it's armored, it's any number of things. We could make that happen. So some of the power-ups might be, if you take this one, you get another heart just for selecting it. So there might be some that are, they don't do as much, but there's a bonus to taking it that isn't directly related to the weapon, kind of a buy one, get one kind of thing. But yeah. Okay, we've got inventory items in there. Let's do a quick code commit. Add a commit so we don't lose our work. Just another PSA for folks that are getting into, have been into, or something. Remember to do wrist and arm exercises if you're doing a lot of gaming or typing. One of the things that you don't want to have happen is you don't want to develop a repetitive stress injury. Carpal tunnel is the classic one for gaming and programming and the like. If you get that, if that develops, or if you're just approaching that, it can be very painful. And you can mitigate that with wrist and arm exercises. Both, if it's already there, sometimes you can mitigate it by doing them, and it will help you prevent developing it. Some people will use wrist braces that can be useful to slow the gain of it, but I can tell you, using a wrist brace won't get rid of the pain if it starts. The more you know. Okay, so we have inventory item. Let's loop back around to where we were aiming to go. So we have the concept of the player as a new type of entity. And that player is going to have a loadout series of items. Which would just be, let's say, entity initialize. won't do us any good because it's a simpler type array. We can't just initialize it empty. Its arrays have to have a size determined. Because we pre-allocate it if we want it to be there anyway. All right, so now we're going to need to copy something over. Let's go find another spot where we did that. And there should be one in Entity. No, wait. Behavior group? Yeah, here we go. Is entity player. Pretty. So we would call this. Similarly, all right. So what we're doing with this initialization portion is we're either extracting a list of strings from an array of strings from the pseudo JSON that we have or directly from the entity we're copying. We don't need to interpret it here. Good way to copy an array, a simple array. There we go. String a loadout length. Okay. Then we copy it in. Okay. So then, with a loadout, what we'll do is we'll get the player item. Check our services. Player state. Game. Player state. Base player state. So we should have a player. We should have the equivalent of a player entity key that we can use for this. Damage. So this is we create one of those entities. This is our opportunity to go into it and do the add logic on the inventory here. For the time being, we'll hard override this so that it always loads this particular player instance. Add the player into existence. We can also go in and add all of the player items to the player inventory at this moment too. So let's change this to a player entity. Player. If this doesn't work, it's fine that it explodes. We would want it to fail if this happens. So now we have that. And we have item in. thinking player entity. It's entity player. Player is equal to this. Equal to player. In player dot initial loadout. Yep. Where do we set up that inventory? Not set up as a service. I think it's set up as part of the game, which means we may need to change that. No, it's inventory and services. Inventory, not add. Okay, we need to move these adds to the base class and have these be a single override for how to add them. We can have a split on the type, but add item should be the thing. Void, add item, string item key. In the base class, it does nothing. Parent class. Override, add item. Okay. We call the base item on it. Now we're over calling the base. This isn't an extension of a constructor. This is how we do things here. Item is equal to, this is the catalog, get inventory item key. Item isn't null. If we will have to figure out a way to remove items from the inventory, but for the time being. I mean, it ultimately shouldn't be a problem because we could just set that item to be an item empty. If I type dot entity behavior add entity with item key, else we add behavior with the item key. Protected. This is protected. Otherwise, same behavior. All right, so this is still a problem. We have some hard-coded identifiers here that we don't want. We need to change how we deal with empty. Right now, empty is an actual item. Which puts us in a circumstance where we are hard coding a particular one. I think I might be okay with that though, because this one has a configuration for it. Yeah. Because either we're going to have to hard code the texture or we're going to have to hard code the empty item. So we might as well do the empty item. Okay. This will break. And in base inventory, a bit wasteful to have each one of these potentially result in build entity templates, but we kind of need to. Okay, now we need to go into the catalog. And for parse entity, okay. Entities currently don't have a type. So now they do. Oh, but they have a category. Okay, we can use category. Use catalog to determine which type of entity it is. All right, let's piece this out. So, if we take the entity category that is specified in the entity file, then, so this is some knowledge of how entities work. I'm not sure I like this, but we kind of have to do it here. So if it's the player, then take this result up here. Result is not null. New entity player for file contents, else that. So we have a special case. If it's the player, we're making it a player type. Load it in, we now have a player type, and the player type will have a loadout. So we can find... Go to our player entity here. Now, when I said this was sort of JavaScript, this is what I mean. This is so painful. So we have to do this kind of thing. Add this back just so I can read these. This is item yarn ball. Okay, so for testing purposes, we're going to run it. First, we're going to see, does it crash? Just the yarn ball. Okay. Now we're going to systematically go in and add the rest of them. That. 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13. Out. In. Spread. Five. Investigate. We are recreating our test code currently in this loadout. Line. Wave and zigzag. Okay. All right, we have base player loadout baked in to the player entity now, which means when we load a player, if we give it a different player entity identifier, we can have a different base loadout. So this is a wave with a zigzag. So it almost looks like it's, how would you describe that? Like a left-right scallop? And it loops down and left, then down and right, then down and left. A bit of network latency there. Very nice. We actually did manage to accomplish what I set out to do, despite being derailed by a couple of other things. Let's get that committed. Okay. So 2 directions we can go from there is we can start working on the enemy spawning script, which is a pretty robust thing to do. Be kind of nice if string parsing was new line agnostic. Can it be new line agnostic? There are serializer options. Allow trailing commas. Now I am looking forward to Godot 4.4 because I would like to use actual JSON deserialization so that we can avoid some of this parsing shenanigans that we're doing. None of that's what we're looking for. Lots of overloads on this. be passing in explicit JSON classes, which I don't want to do. Serializer options, you'd think that'd be where it would be. One of the things I wish we could do, let's double check, maybe we can, is stuff like that. Okay, it doesn't care about that change. How about that? It handles strings across multiple lines? It does not. Let's check something real quick. Can I get away with this? Sadly, it's when you try to look up stuff like how to handle line breaks in JSON, there is a preponderance of how do I include a new line in the string. Nope. I'm doing some quick lookup here. I am not showing the screen because white web pages are a bit of a flashbang here. So, if there's anything you want to chat about, feel free at the moment. I mean, feel free in general. Sadly, we have to parse it as a string. Yeah, almost universally, you have, like, Reddit and whatnot. If somebody's asking, how do I do a gigantically long string in a JSON file such that I can read it? Um, and that can be a problem. And I could word wrap it, and it's not so bad if I zoom in, but after a while, that will become a bit of a burden. Switch over to cat camel and do this. Yeah, that is a poisoned web search. That is one that it is impossible to ask that question without the other question stomping it, essentially. Terminology thing. Nope. Probably just have to drop this for in a moment here. Yep. We'll just continue on. It is a hassle, but we'll have to deal with it. But we have loadouts like that. So if we add another player type, we're actually going to go into data. That, and then we're going to go into our catalog. And we're going to load the players folder as well. For loading players, we should already pull in the player object just so. Bullet enemy icon. Just doing a bit of cleanup here. It's data textures, like bullet enemy icon player tree. Okay. Let's verify how we're doing this. Yeah, okay. Enemy icon player train. Okay, but these are all textures. So let's... So now we have each one of these fully mapped out. We're going to be able to replace each of these. Let's see, Gates path. Triggers path. Behaviors. Now we need all the subtypes of behaviors. Just tab all of that. So Special movement collision timer spawning groups. Here's timer behavior. Spawning behavior. Slash in each one of these. Vision. Spawning and behavior group. That. Consistency. Entities. Right. Textures pane. Enemy. Textures pane. Texture path. Terrain. Gates path. Triggers. Targeters, isn't it? Targeters. Special behaviors. Movement. We are changing these to constants because I've got so many of them. It'll be good to just get all of that into one location. So in case I use it again. Entities. So the player's path, I may end up combining into entities folder, but we'll see. Items path. Data path. Items. Semicolon. There. Sure, we didn't break it. There they are. Little commit here. All right. No, ultimately, I think we're going to take the win on this one for now. Oh, stretch. Let's actually run it just so we can. So what we accomplished today was to get all of this specified alongside the player object. So if I use a different player object, I can specify a different collection of startup stuff. This is not likely to be a big list, but this is the critical element. What's your starting weapon? Then some of these others can be handy, and we may use them. But having logic to Jackie, it depends on a lot of different factors. I mean, there are some folks that 300 pounds could be like pure muscle and bone. I have met people that are built like a square, and they are fit as all get out. Another way to put it is it does depend on the individual. You know, are you are you 4 feet tall and generally petite otherwise? Are you 7-foot brick house? You know, what are you talking about? That kind of thing. Yeah, body image and mental health are things I would suggest consulting with your physician and or relevant therapist to determine how to pursue an answer to that question that is relevant to you as a person. Yeah, all text files now. Okay, good results. We can come up with one more example for a player. I can make another. I can swap out a file for that. We can also come up with. But I think the next major system is going to be changing the frequency and type of enemy that is spawned. We'll figure out a way to get some more entities in there. I think color tinting is going to be something that we're going to want to do for enemies. So that I can take one and, like, you know, this is the red version. I don't want to do that frequently, but being able to change colors on them will help for other visual signals. We won't want the color to be the only visual signal, you know, to deal with things like color blindness. But that is one viable signal to say, like, hey, this enemy has been hit multiple times. How do you know that it's going to go away soon? Maybe you never will, you know? Not until it goes away. It's not the most scientific thing nowadays, Jackie, but you can look up things like body mass index based on the sex, height, weight, those kind of things. You can get an idea for it. To my understanding, it's much more inaccurate for female characters, but it'll give you an idea. And then maybe you can find reference materials appropriate to those numbers. Let you ballpark it, you know? Okay. So next thing is probably going to be the enemy spawn frequency. Maybe I'll try to get another enemy sprite going one of these times. Maybe next time. We'll have to see. But that'll about do it for the day. Again, we made some more progress. We've got the player entity able to be defined as well as what they start with. So when we load a new player, the contents of their inventory is determined by the player entity ID that you give it. Looking at that, the player inventory is still specified only to one player, and that might be a problem. But we'll see. Thank you. I do like how the model turned out. It's got all of the details that I requested, and I think the artist really went above and beyond. There are details that they came up with based on the description that I really like. Oh yeah, there is something going on in the background there. Probably just needs a computer. Sorry, I'm staring at the performance numbers on my game at the same time. Oh. Okay, but if you like what you saw and would like to see more, remember to like, follow, comment, subscribe. All of those good things. Those help the channel grow, and they'll help you see content like this again in the future. Now, with all of that said, I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you next time.